Welcome to Let's Discuss X-Wing Miniatures. I am your host, GenghisJohn, and I am here with LSO 2022 champion Rob Pettit from Idea Squad. Rob, how you doing?
Pretty good. Also known as One-Armed Billy on
Also
the
known as One Arm
on
Billy
the internets.
on the internet. So if you've seen him there, which you probably have, you do quite a bit of online virtual play as well. But we are here just less than a week removed from the Lone Star Open to talk about what we saw and just, some kind of implications for the game moving forward, what we noticed out of the meta should be a good time. Lone Star Open, of course, was hosted by Frontline Gaming. Thanks to them for having quite a fun event. It was fun for me. I made top cut for the first time. Winning is fun. Talk about some of the swag, Rob. What did you win specifically?
So for the top place, you got to pick from two template trays, two custom-made template trays from Admiral Taters, I believe it is. They're on Etsy. You can look them up. They do a lot of Armada stuff, like custom Armada stuff.
Gotcha.
Um, but it's like a custom LSO 2022 tray, and then some custom templates. It's very nice. It's actually really nice. It's got like a marbled finish. I don't know how they do that wizardry, but it looks really good. So I got to pick from a blue one or a red one. I went with blue, so that was my first placed swag.
But what about Red for
Um,
England? You're a lobster.
I'm a lobster. I'm a lobster if I go outside in Texas.
Yeah,
Um, no, I just actually normally I do the red stuff, but I'm like, okay, let's lighten it up. Let's get a bit of a blue in there
fair
in
enough.
Texas.
You also got a Coruscant mat for top four, and
Yes,
then you
and
got
that's funnily enough, that was the only thing I really wanted. It was like, okay, that's my goal, is to get top four or whatever. That's what I want. I want the mat. Anything after that is like, yay! But I
right.
wanted that mat.
Uh, and then they passed out a lot of like participation stuff at the beginning.
Yeah,
They gave
cards.
everyone acrylic objective tokens, which I didn't have any objective token. So I was like, oh shit, I'm done here because I have something that I didn't have. And I'm like, okay, everything else is just juicy. And then yeah, quite a bit of alt arts. I picked it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And some of them were this nifty quick build cards that I had never seen before. They
Can
were
you
all
put one up on
generic.
the screen on the video? I've not seen any. Show me
Okay,
some.
yeah, sure. So well, I have a picture of it, but I can put it on here just now for you. Of course it's backwards for you, but yeah, you can sort of
It's alright, I can
get the
read.
gist. Um,
Been learning English.
yeah, so the back side, it's a quick build card, so it's got like threat level and then upgrades, but something that I had never seen before, on the bottom there's what's called an experience tracker. It says destroy ships to earn experience, and it's got like number. Okay, so you destroy so many ships, you get different like abilities or perks. So like you kill 2 ships, recover 2 shields. On the third ship, recover a charge on proton rockets. Proton rockets bullseye requirement becomes front arc. So it's kind of a neat thing if someone is looking to do like a campaign where you start with a really like low end pilot and then gradually gain experience and abilities and stuff. It looks like it's sort of built for something like that. It's really neat. I had never seen it before, and I know talking with you earlier, you had said that you had never seen anything like that before.
No,
So
I think that's really interesting because if you think of the application of that in the game is, you might have like a Green Squadron pirate, not particularly
mm,
great, be like, man, I want him to get the kill because I want him to get 2 shields back.
right,
I want him to get his protorp back, whatever. I think
right.
that's pretty. I think that could be very interesting if they do seem to be heading in that quick build direction
Hmm.
for a lot of things. So that
Yeah.
may get fleshed out more. So that's pretty interesting. I like the implications of that.
Yeah, stay tuned on that for a later game. Let's talk about some tournament stats. The LSO Open. We had 33 total players. There was one drop at 0-3. 5 rounds of Swiss. I believe that the game type that was played twice was Assault. There was a top 8 cut. Faction representation. Rebel Alliance. 4 squads of they were all 4-ship rebels for 12% of the field. One made cut. All but one of those lists.
Wow.
Sorry, but you gotta do a little self.
Oh, you got to. You got to self-congratulate.
All but one of those 4-ship rebel lists had the Luke Dutch Wedge combination. Galactic Empire, 7 squads for 21% of the field. 3 of those made cut. It was the only multi-list faction in the cut. All but one of those 7 lists had Vader. All but one had Wampa. Every single one had 1 or 2 ISB Jingoists. Scum and Villainy Scum and Villainy also had 7 squads for 21% of the field. 1 made cut. 5 lists had fire sprays. 4 of those lists were Koshka Frost. 2 of them, very interestingly, were Kath Scarlet, and I want to maybe talk about that later. At the event total, there were 11 fire sprays. That includes CIS and Scum and Villainy. The Resistance also had 4 squads, 12%, 1 of which made cut. There were 2 Ray Poe lists. 3 of the lists had Poe Dameron. First Order, 3 squads, 9% of the field. The lists were actually really diverse. I feel like there wasn't one archetype dominating that faction. And of course, your own 5-ship squad won the event. Another interesting fact about First Order is it had the second highest concentration of non-limited ships at 26%. So 4 ships of the 15 First Order ships present were generic or non-limited. CIS had 29%, but you kind of expect that with all the droid swarm kind of thing. That's not what you would necessarily expect from First Order. Galactic Republic, 3 squads, 9%. It was the one faction not represented in the final cut. There were no pilot ship duplicates. There were 2 Obi-Wans, but one was Ader Sprite, and the other one was Ectus, Actus, whatever it is. And then finally, the Confederacy of Independent Systems. There were 5 lists, 15% of the field. 1 made cut, 3 Jangos, 3 Grievouses. There were only 2 droid pilots in the top 10. And of note, Jango Zam DFS 311 won the Day 2 side event. So, looking at all of that, Rob Pettit, what are your takeaways from that? What are your takeaways from that faction representation?
Well, I mean, it pretty much mirrors a lot of the stuff you see online and like how they've been doing. So if you look at Rebel Alliance, predominantly it's going to be that Alpha Strike, Luke, Dutch Wedge plus something else, whether it's Fen or something else. But typically it's Fen because you get the I6 coordinate, you get to lock down the focus from somebody. You know, there's a lot of strength there, but it is an Alpha Strike list, and it is very kind of one-dimensional. Maybe I'll go with two-dimensional, but it's you point your little squad at people, and somebody should be dying.
Yeah.
You know, you're killing. You're not really going for objectives because you need everything together for the most part. And because it's Rebel, it's all this synergy. You're I6ing somebody. You're doing this, and so really you are counting on those double mods to effectively kill something on the very first turn of engagement. and then you do it again. You keep doing it, and that's all you're really doing. Like rarely are you going for objectives, or it seems to be a weak objective list for the most part
Mm,
because Luke. There's a couple of different ways that you play it that I've seen people play it. You get some people that really go into that um, pre-boost barrel roll, the closing your S foils and doing all that stuff with Fen, and then maneuvering, after that. Other ones are just like, hey, no, it's one forward to victory all day, bro, and then that's what I'm gonna do, So it's a good squad. I mean, it's very strong. So one of the reasons why I switched my list from what I was playing before was because of the the rebels just nuking me into out of
right.
existence. And we'll get to that when we get to First Order.
Sure.
Galactic Empire, if you look at the last couple of GSPs, like in fact the last GSP, there was no First Order made it through the cut. And it was just a slew of Galactic Empire. Galactic Empire is so strong right now. And as you can see, a lot of it revolves around those Jingoists. They're I4, 2 points, worthless in the grand scheme of things, but they are I4. They have a super strong ability. They have access to illicit. And I've come across it quite a few times, and there's a couple of different main builds. You've got like the mourner or somebody with somebody with
Hmm.
ruthless, and then you've got these exploding jingoists. Some people are putting DMS on that, and so it's you throw those DMS in there. They're debuffing you or removing. Usually they're going to remove your focus or they're just going to debuff you. You might not even have a focus by that point, but so they're effective in that sense, and they're I4. They have really good initiative, um, and then you just purposely kill them,
Yeah.
because if you don't want to shoot them because if you got a bunch of ships together, you kill one of their ships, and he may have done 2, 3, 4 damage to
Yeah.
you
In exchange
just
for the
just for
one. Yeah.
those 2 points, and then he's it's rough. And then if you don't do it, then he's like, that's fine. I'll do it myself. I will make sure that I'm getting 4 hits for this ruthless.
Oh, loose
So it's very strong.
stabilizers. I'll do it too. Bank into your squadron and just right. Yeah.
On the last GSP event I went to that I did online, one of my last lists I played was a Mourner, TIE Vader, not a Defender Vader, and then Jingoists and whatnot. And I didn't shoot the Jingoists at all until I absolutely had to, or they weren't at range one. Um, and they were just rolling around on 1 health because every time it's like if I kill him, he's going to kill 2 of my ships from
Yep.
that explosion.
Yep.
And then at one point he tried to fly himself on top of a rock so he could kill himself, but he was just a tiny bit short, so he
Oh
couldn't do
man.
it. But had he done that, he would have killed 2 of my ships from it.
Oh my god.
So there's a lot of
Jeez.
there's a lot of one of the most interesting things with X-wing is giving your opponent bad choices and making them like, oh, second guess. Oh, should I do this? If I do this, this can happen. Oh, I don't know. Once you kind of worm that indecision into somebody's brain, it can really kind of tilt their game for the rest of the match, which is kind of what you want.
Right.
There's a lot of mind games as well as just the table game. It's a fun thing. So yeah, Galactic Empire. That was my in the finals. So it's Galactic Empire is very strong. Scum and Villainy. Really, I mean, you've got the best chassis in the game with the fire spray, so that's why you're seeing so many of
And
them.
there were a
But really,
lot.
you can round it out with a few other things, like some people are doing Kanan, some people maybe doing M3As. There's not a huge, but some people are doing Han for that kind of like those range 3, 5 dice, whatever.
Hmm.
That's a lot of dice. Those things. It's the best chassis in the game, so there's no wonder why you're seeing so many of those. And as they're named, they get more loadout points. And you're not even taking them for abilities for the most part. You just take them for the loadout points and the
Hmm.
fact that it's the best chassis in the game.
Yeah.
Resistance, I mean, they're kind of struggling, I feel. Like, it's like you have Ray and you have Poe, really good. But, but with objectives, you need so much more. I came across it twice, and It was objectives, and that's why I won. They were 3 ships, or in the last case, it was 4 ships. But once I've knocked down 1 or 2 ships, then I'm just winning. I'm snowballing on objectives. Like, I never killed Ray. You know, everybody told me, "You need to kill Ray. Ray's the like, she's chucking those 5 dice, 6 dice, double modded, single modded, whatever, but she's chucking a lot of dice." Like, "Oh, I don't really need to. I need to work the objectives. Like, if I have
Hmm.
the numbers advantage, I kill the smaller things, I kill the easier things, I kill Poe, I kill whatever else is there, and leave Ray alone. She can run around, but that's okay. While she's killing one ship or chasing a ship, I'm taking 3 objectives and getting 3 points a turn. That's, so they just need, I guess,
So
more
that's an
more
interesting
cheaper
one.
ships.
One real quick thing that I just thought of while in X-wing we often talk about trading a ship for something, and a lot of the time at least in 2.0 it's you trade a
2.5, sir.
ship. Well, I know we're
2.5.
in 2.5 now, but the 2.0 mindset was okay, you want to trade up a ship for one of their ships. But in 2.5, you can trade a ship for objectives. If their Ray is trying to chase down a 5-point ship, and that takes 3 rounds, in those 3 rounds, you've collected 9 objective points. I mean, that's trading up. Yeah, you've lost a ship, and you didn't trade it for Ray per se, but you've earned the points regardless. That might be a new, I don't know, a new mindset, new way of thinking about trading ships, or yeah, I don't know. That's
No,
just
no, you're
something that I
right.
thought of.
It's absolutely it is. There's you got to do a bit of math. You've got to like, is this worth? And even when you're, if you're the aggressor, if you're the Ray, you have to decide like, is this worth me chasing down this
Yep.
bomber for 3 turns to try and kill him for 4 points?
Hmm.
But in that time, I've lost 6 points in objectives, and the time and we've gone on 2 or 3 rounds, and time has pushed on.
Yep.
So you do have to take those things into account.
Yeah.
Especially when you are the one with the least amount of ships. The First Order. Well, my list. I say my list. It was a net list. I did steal it
That's all right.
from Chris Patrick,
Oh, hence
who
the name. I just got the name to your list then. Stolen Valor. Okay, that makes sense. I was like, what
there
does
you
that
go.
even
Yeah,
mean? But like, okay, it
Stolen
makes sense.
Valor. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Um, and I've played. I've done variants of this list, and I've tried different things, and I keep coming back to like, yeah, no, this is pretty much the optimal way to do it.
Yeah.
The other First Order stuff, I know one guy was doing like a whatever, the XI, the she shuttle,
There were
and then
two
Fork Rocket Whispers.
Kai shuttles.
Zai.
Um, One of them, there was a list that was all bombers. So I had mentioned that
Hmm,
there were
there
a
you go.
lot of generic ships. There was one list of all bombers, one of which was a generic, and then there was another list. I need to make
Oh yeah.
sure, and it was mostly
I'm looking those up.
generic.
Yeah,
Was it Whispers, or I think it was generic Whispers.
it's an above average list. But you're super swingy, like, if you're not getting those bullseyes, you're doing no damage,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
really. It's very difficult. Um, and just with the current meta, it just isn't strong enough. Other stuff is too cheap. But that's the only reason why you're seeing this is one of the very few, if not the only, generic ships
hmm,
that is actually worth taking
yep, yeah,
because you get a good loadout. They're I4. They are actually good, and it's 4 points. It's good,
yeah,
but it's just not quite strong enough with the current meta. So and that's second from bottom, and that is a difficult list to play. You need a lot of reps on that.
right.
I mean, Galactic Republic. I mean, they had their heyday at the beginning of 2.5, and they were just oppressive, evil. Uh, Just not fun,
I think the Jedi are
winning in
evil.
turn one. And CIS, I mean, you've got Django Zam is super good. CIS is in a good spot. They've got some really good lists. Cad Bane, Grievous, some very good solo ships. You can kind of just play around with. when you want to add more swarms.
CIS is a very different. Before, in its first iteration, it was the swarm list. Just put as many vultures and hyenas on the board as you
Yep,
can.
just low
And
quality.
now that they've accumulated more live carbon unit pilots, like Django Zam and Grievous and Cad Bane now, you're definitely seeing a shift in what CIS is able to put on the table. Like I said earlier, there were only 2 droid pilots in the top 10. That's a
Yeah,
far cry from how the faction started.
yeah. And one of the interesting things is you look at them; they're the swarm faction,
Mm,
and you've got your 2-point ships, and
yep.
they're no names. There might be a couple with names that I don't even know, but then you compare that to Galactic Empire. So if your cap is 8 ships because of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at Galactic Empire versus droids, Galactic Empire has 8 named that you
Yep.
can fit.
Yep.
8. And these aren't like I2s, these are I4s and 5s, like,
Yep.
and with really good abilities.
Yep.
And so I'm glad that CIS has got some strong named solo pilot things
Mm-hmm.
like Zam, Django, Grievous, Cad Bane, because if they were the like de facto swarm, I don't
They
feel like they'd
wouldn't
be that
survive
good.
right now just with how
Yeah,
efficient
I feel like they would
game
be so
cards.
underwhelming when you just look at Galactic Empire and like, how's that
Right.
little meme go? With the guy looking behind him
Yeah.
at the hot
That's
chick.
good.
Yeah,
I'll have to see if I can throw it on here.
you could make one of those. Yeah,
Yeah. All right. So now that we've talked about just sort of general faction representation, let's dive into each of the cut lists, some of which we've talked about more than others, and we can just run through and really just talk about what's to like about this list. How, on paper, what's good about it? How did it perform well? So, 8th would be GenghisJohn's Rebel Alpha Dutch Shot First list with Dutch Vander, Luke Skywalker, X-Wing Wedge, and Fenrir in the Sheathapede. I kitted out this list a bit different than other existing versions of this list. So, our mutual friend Jax, I was still struggling to find a list the Thursday night before the event started, and he pointed me towards Rebel Alpha, and I made a couple changes. I think some of the more impactful. Dutch is the most different looking ship. My Dutch has plasma torps and dorsal and belly run and R3. And I think that change really made a difference in this list making cut versus the other Rebel lists not. I did have one Rebel Alpha mirror match. It wasn't the exact same like loadout. And you know me, I love combo wing. So Fenrir is coming in at initiative 6. Dutch, he moves, he takes a focus action. Fenrir comes in at initiative 6. He's coordinating a target lock to Dutch, which is a double target lock. And then Dutch is giving an initiative 6 target lock probably to Wedge because Luke with the Force probably took his own double target lock. And then at the beginning of engagement, I have swarm tactics on Fen. So now Dutch is also shooting at 6. So you've got an I6 plasma torps followed up by a wedge proton torpedo. And if that doesn't kill you, you still have, just a naked 2 dice Fenrir coming in. And then you've got Luke Skywalker to clean up. It's just it demolishes anything that's in all of those arcs. In the mirror match, having the dorsal turret was huge because his Dutch had the torpedoes, Tierfon, and that's it. And so I could sort of kite around and, chuck my 2 dice out, and it killed a couple things that way. Dutch is there. Dutch is there to shoot at I6. strip shields, and then just pass out locks the rest of the game. And I think having that extra arc to just shoot out of um, is good. I don't. Your thoughts?
No, I think that's a good change. I mean, I haven't played the list. I've just played against it, and most of them have been about the same. Yours is a little different, and I think that's an interesting thing with a lot of these lists. So, like, you know, you got like, oh, yeah, net listings. Like, yes, but the way the
Yeah.
game is built now,
Mm-hmm.
like, what else are you going to take for these points? Like, you know, there are these for the points and the loadout, which is a separate problem. Um, these are the most efficient ones.
Yep.
So, and it's like, well, you could do something different other than Dutch. Yeah, but Dutch is such a value, and you also want something that's annoying. You want something that is shoot me. I'm not that
Mm-hmm.
hard to kill. I have a
Right.
lot of health. I can take a few slaps, but you know, so if people are killing Dutch, which in your experience, like what was the primary target that
So it
people were
was
going
always
for?
Wedge. It was Wedge, and then when they couldn't get Wedge and Wedge goes behind, they immediately turn on Fenrir. And actually, interestingly, the first game I completely forgot about Fenrir's ability. I didn't use
Hmm.
it once.
Didn't need to, or you just because you
I'm
forgot
sure.
because you
No, I'm
didn't
sure
need
I
it?
could have
Or
need. I
okay.
just forgot. Like literally, I just forgot it existed. I was like, oh, Storm Tactics. I was like, okay, that's what Fenrir was there for. In all the other games, I remembered his ability. So then in the second game against Ethan's CIS list, I was using Fenrir. I mean, with pretty consistently. At the end of the game, though, I forgot he had Novice Technician, which would have flipped over structural damage, and honestly, probably would have made the difference in that game. Um, but yeah, and so I love combo wing, and I also love defensive abilities, and that's why I stuck with Fenrir. I love X-wing, so and I love Colby, which is the other pilot that you see a lot in Fenrir's
Yes.
place. But just with all the combos and all the things that I wanted, I thought Fenrir was the way to go on that for sure.
Yeah, I6 coordinate is so strong,
Yep.
and his ability is strong. And yeah, it's only a little shuttle. The thing I always forget about it is I always forget that it can reverse. If
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't use the ability, I'm like, okay, he's going to two hard or he's going to three bank or whatever.
Right.
No, he's just little dudes reversing up.
Yeah. Back it
It's a
up.
strong list, but you know,
It does struggle
it
with
has its
objectives.
counters.
Absolutely. I think that is the chaff clouds being one, and those are pretty popular right now. And the other thing is, yeah, the objective play. My preference is for a list that is a little more versatile. It's not going to kill stuff as well as this list, but it can, run objectives a little bit better. But I mean, I can't complain. I took it and I made cut for the first time, so I'm happy.
Yeah, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. All right, so then next we have the Resistance list. This was Jax McCullough's Resistance heroes with 2 shuttles, BB-8 with Ferrosphere and targeting priority. Finn, your typical elusive, heroic, perceptive co-pilot. Poe has all the usual stuff. Same thing with Ray. Has Shattering Trick Shot, which is just a disgusting number of dice. Rose, Agile Gunner, FTC, Engine Upgrade. You played against Jax?
I did top 8.
Talk to us about your matchup and just what you observe with this list.
So I was actually really worried about this list because of Ray. Like
Mm-hmm.
Ray has such high. I mean, if she's throwing a procket at range 3 like every turn, and it's accurate, right?
Yep.
Which sucks. If you know if you have a high, so I was very worried about just like Carlo's going to get Carlo could get one shot. If I
Right.
blank out, I could get one shot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't let that happen. Um, So his build with Ray is a little different. You see Ray, and it's 99% time it's the same Ray every time. It's
Mm-hmm.
heroic,
Yep.
it's Finn, it's blah 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 blah, and they just like you know chuck her down your throat. So she ends up being a trading piece by default.
Yes.
And it's one agility. So yes, she throws herself, and she is trying to claw some points back for getting killed. She's what, 8 points, something like that.
I
She's
believe
8 points, I
so.
think.
8. Yep.
She is not cheap, and so when people play her like that, like, can you get those points back for losing her for 8 points? N- Not always. With his is more of an orbiter. The problem with his list is he didn't have enough. Like, he has these two little shuttles that are annoying. They're annoyances. They're cheap, so they're good for, like, oh, I'm gonna go grab an objective and do this and that. But they're not a threat, right? So the threat is Poe. So you kind of kill them if they're in the way, but you're either going for Poe or Ray. I think, I mean, I know I've talked to him since, and he knows, like, he's already like redoing his list to have
Mm.
more threat in the middle of his list.
Yeah,
So Poe is
talking to him
probably gone.
afterwards, he talked about trading Poe to allow for more points to make Finn and BB-8 better. I really like at Finn, this Finn at 3 points. I don't know, it feels really good.
Finn was actually the first one that I killed and went for
Yeah.
because he does actually have good damage potential.
Mhm.
Like, he can actually do good damage. He's not just like, yeah, this little shuttle does nothing, 2 dice.
Right.
No, he can get in there and he can get range 1 and he can actually hit you with 4 dice. And he's such low initiative that the strain typically doesn't matter. In
Right.
my game, it did because I also have low initiative ships. So that was interesting.
All right. Next, we have Luke Beatty's an Empire beef archetype. I think is sort of forming here. V1 Vader Afterburners version. Morna Key, one of 2 Morna Keys there in the Decimator, Discipline 000, Seven Sister, and Rox Mines. Elusive Wampa, and 2 overturned modulators, Jingoists. I love the Decimator build. I love Seven Sister turns, you know, stress tokens into jams or um, dang it, tractors. So like you do a red focus bump. Oh, well, you just bumped, but now you don't have a focus, and so it's just sort of a net zero kind of thing. Um, I think it's probably the rationale there, and just the fact that you can fit a decimator with all of these ties and Vader. You can fit a decimator. You can fit Vader. You can fit 3 more ships in there. Um, yeah, that's just a lot, and all of those ships can play different roles in the game. I think it's a very balanced list. Vader can obviously kill stuff. He can also do objectives with all of his extra actions. Same thing with the Jingoists. They can blow that OM to have mods and turn an objective on. And then Wampa, you don't want to shoot him. He's got elusive. He's just harder to kill. So, your thoughts on this list or
So
archetype?
I did play this right before the cut.
Okay.
For a minute, I was actually like, maybe I should just concede. I'm going to play him in. I'm more likely going to play him in the top 8. Maybe I should just concede, not give him free intel on
Not give free.
what. But he's like, no, because it goes both ways. Like,
Right. Right.
so I wanted to see it. The way he set up, he put Morna over in one corner, Vader's in the other. So I ended up putting all my stuff over by Morna, and I just rushed in. I just 5 forward boost, like everything's going in to kill Morna.
Mm-hmm.
It is a strong list, but again, like with the invention of chaff clouds, like, you're not getting double reinforced in the front, and you're not getting
Right.
tokens, and you're a big girl. You're going to sit there for a little while on that chaff cloud, and I'm probably
Right.
going to be able to block you on it. So I was able. I feel like she lasted 2 or 3 turns, 2 turns, but it was all just if your dice are good enough to get through the ton of health.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a super strong list. Vader took too long to get in, had to burn all of his afterburner uh, charges just to get into combat. Like while Morna was flailing around, screaming for help.
Right.
1 point is good. He's 2 points. He's like, you can't ignore him. You have to do some shot into him. The Jingoists, again, super strong. I don't like his build with the Jingoists. I'd be interested to know from him why he picked OM. OM is just a card. I don't think it's worth it.
So I
Because
had talked to him during yours in Tegan's game, and he said specifically for, okay, you want to grab an objective and you still have mods, effectively.
okay,
I agree it's a bit risky because then, okay, you just don't shoot at, and now next turn you have 0 agility because you didn't spend 3 calculates. Now you have 3 strain tokens, and
well,
you're going to
remember
get one
strain
shot at
doesn't
next turn.
stack, so you're only going to lose 1 agility.
Okay.
But but you are making your ship easier to kill. So I just don't like it. And if you end up having to pop it too early, then the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the game, if you
Right.
don't happen to spend that focus,
Right.
then the next round and you don't do a blue, like I don't know. I just don't feel like it's worth it. I feel like there's scarier things in there. You can do cloaking device if you want to get objectives and be harder to hit. Then
Right.
just do cloaking device. Be all over the
Fair.
place for a bit. You can make them a DMS. Like, shoot me, bro. Come on, shoot me, and I will do more damage than I'm even worth to you.
Right.
You know.
Next, Stefan Consoli's Scum and Villainy list, Fet, Fen, and Kanan Jarrus. Pretty typical stuff, I think, but Fet is built slightly differently with Ahsoka instead of Maul. Ahsoka being one, effectively one force, just like Maul, but 1 point cheaper. Also had the Marauder title and ablative plating, which I actually really like, to be able to, go over an asteroid fast and not take any damage and really surprise your enemy. I like that a lot.
I thought ablative was just for bombs, friendly
Ablative is
bombs.
bombs and obstacles.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Then if it's bombs and obstacles, I think that's a really good upgrade. And that's probably why Ahsoka was picked over Maul. I mean, she does have an ability, but I think
Yeah.
you rarely see it used.
Yeah, it's
But
like
yeah,
it's a rear arc. If another ship is in your rear arc, you spend it to give them an action even when stressed. It's something like that.
I mean that's pretty good for Fen because if Boba's chucking himself in there, Fen's
Right.
coming up from behind. You're like, okay, make sure you've got to
True.
focus, and then yeah. So that's actually that's pretty strong. I can see why it did well. I mean, Canis is super good. You've got the coordinate. You've got bombs.
Mm,
Kanan's annoying. Fenrir is super strong. Boba Fett is super strong. You've got really good consistency with the list. Yeah, so it doesn't surprise me that those. But I mean, it's a 3-ship list,
3
so I
ship,
feel like
and it did have a fire spray, but only 1 fire spray, as opposed to all these
yeah,
double fire spray lists you're seeing.
I feel like that's a very aggressive kill list. I
Mm,
think I feel like it would not do great on objectives, but then again, you've got good consistency with like Boba with his rerolls, so it's like it's okay. I can take this objective. I can flip this
right.
satellite or whatever.
Mm.
So yeah, it's a good list.
And if your
I
opponent's
can
dead, then you don't have to worry about them getting
yeah.
objectives. Am I right?
You can't claim nothing if you're dead.
Yeah. Then we have Ethan Williams, Zamgo with a Separatist bomber. The bomber has the electro chaff missiles, of course, to break locks. And I like how he uses it both offensively and defensively. Like, he will go over his own chaff clouds pretty fearlessly to break those locks. And it also, of course, gives seismic charges, more targets. Django has Palpatine Sidious for the Force I6 coordinate if you want. Zam, just extra dirty with Notorious, Dooku, Deadman Switch, Seismic, and Fuses. This list has a lot of toys to keep track of. I faced off against this list in round 2 and lost. The way he played with Chaff Clouds was really surprising. He went over it himself with Django's after I had taken Locke, so that okay, all of a sudden I'm not shooting any ordnance at him. That's pretty strong. It's a strong list. It's a list with a lot of merits in its own, but just Ethan has been playing this archetype for so long. He's a
2+
surgeon with
years.
it. Yeah. And he doesn't ever deviate from this. He's consistently at the top tables in virtual and live events with whatever version of this list is legal. And as we were talking about earlier, he's very much a planing phase player, and I think this is a planing phase list.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and there's a lot to, and this is another one of those lists that you can't pick up and just be good. And not a lot of people are playing Django Zam. You're
Right.
not seeing it anywhere, which is surprising. And I do wonder if that's a throwback from 2.0, where it was everywhere for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you look at those statistics, people weren't. Yes, some people were doing amazing with it. Some people, there was a lot of people that were not, because again, when you have so many tools and triggers, if you are not used to it, then you will forget those things. And if you forget those things, then you're missing out
Right.
on all the source for the list. And there
Right.
is so much source in there. You've got Palpatine, you've got Isaac's coordinate, and it's not just a coordinate; it's a coordinate and a focus. It's really strong. You've got bombs, proton bombs for those crits. You've got Dooku. Oh well, I'll always make sure I have a crit. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're on those objectives where it's making people drop crates,
Yeah.
calling a crit, it's super strong. You've got your seismic charges, and you're creating obstacles that you can then seismic, and you can even delay it. You're like, okay, I'm going to drop that there, and then I'm going to delay it. I'm going to move away, but next turn, if you have not run away, you know. And seismics have such range because it's range one from that, then range one from
Right.
whatever you've
Mm-hmm.
picked,
Yep.
and it's really good. And hyena class bombers, 5 health, electro chaff. It's a utility thing. It's a objective holder. You can just sit on an objective, grab one, and run away. Like it's a good piece. But Django and Zam, like there's a lot in there. Notorious with Zam, like that's a super strong thing because do you shoot Zam or not? If you do, you're gonna get Notorious. And what card
And
did he
what
pick?
condition? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so if he did pick the one where he shoots back because you shot him, you're now minus dice. He gets his dice manipulation. He gets his double mods, and it's oh god,
Yeah.
it's a
It's
lot to think
disgusting.
about, and
Yep.
it's gross. And again, it's one of those things where if you can start making people double guess what they're doing, and do I want to shoot it? No. What do I think he did? And then he has that game of like, no, I know you don't want to shoot Zam, so that's why when you don't shoot me, I'm going to shoot you.
Right.
There's a lot going on there, and it
Yep.
is a strong list. Again, we said best chassis in the game, and I feel like this is one of the most optimal versions you can get. Um, Very strong.
Agreed.
It's no wonder that he does so well with it. Plus, he has put in the work. He puts in God knows how many games he's played with this, hundreds.
Right.
So I didn't want to play it. I'm glad. I'm glad he lost between you and me. But
And
I'm not,
everyone who's watching this video.
Yeah.
All right, top three. Tegan Huntington with the another Mornicky Desi Burger with fries with ties. Desi Burger with ties, including Iden with Disciplined Ruthless HLC targeting computer, Moff Gideon Ruthless FTC cloaking device targeting computer, Gideon Hask Disciplined Concussion missiles and targeting, one Jingoist, a contraband Jingoist, and a disciplined Wampa. A little bit different because usually you see a Decimator, some ties at like a Vader or maybe even a what's it called, a Defender in there. But this was a Decimator and all ties. And this was your top 4 game. Talk to us about it.
I actually played him twice. I played
Played
him
twice.
in the Swiss, and then I played him in the cut. So I'd already seen it, and it does have, oh god, it's actually has some very gross interactions. Gideon just like, no, you're not modifying anything at all. Thanks for playing. I know I'm going to do it again. Don't worry. I've got more. I've got more where that came from.
Yeah.
It has a lot of strain mechanics. So it's a very disruptive list. It's a very strong list. Um, the second game was the game that really mattered was very close. The first game was not really very close. I did pretty well on objectives, and I managed to jam everybody up, and I got some good blocks and bombs on him, and But in the cut game, it literally came down to the last round.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, which I sat by and watched most of it.
on the last turn, it's one of those things where he had to kill my bomber to win or to draw, right?
Hmm.
If he'd killed the bomber, we would have drawn. But I put my bomber, but I didn't have to even put my bomber in a place to get shot. So I was
Right.
still, for whatever insane reason, trying to kill his decimator, which was running away, but still getting good shots back. It was the decimator was like triple stressed. It'd been stressed the entire game because of landing on multiple
Right.
clouds, getting blocked on clouds. I say clouds, I mean shafts.
Hmm.
By getting blocked on that stuff, so was stressed forever. So it was like natural rolls plus the Tiber Saxon and whatever else is going on. But yeah, it's one of those things where like you really need to be mindful about your win conditions and their win condition, and I wasn't,
Right.
and it almost lost me the game. If my dice had not held up, I got very lucky on those last few rolls, and my bomber did not die.
Runner-up Keenan Childs, Vader with Evasion, Malice, Pattern Analyzer, FCS, Shield Upgrade, a Rexler, Juke FCS, and Diamond Boron missiles. A little bit different there. You typically see 2 Deadman Jingoists and a Disciplined Wampa. I unfortunately had to play Keenan twice. You had to play him in the finals, obviously. I was a Deadman Jingo skeptic. Generally, I don't know. I typically don't like Deadman Switch. It's probably born out of my tendency to fly my 4-ship rebels all close together. But anyways, he definitely turned me into a believer on several things. Really, that and the shield upgrade Vader. After seeing it a couple times at this event, I think that is the superior version than an Afterburners Vader. Um, there's no good target to shoot at in this list. Vader has all kinds of mods. Rexler has focus juke or focus evade. Wampa, is 2 points. And then your Jingoists, if they're at range 1, well, they're going to do more damage to you than you end up doing to them. What was your and yeah, that's every target is sort of the wrong choice. What was your experience with this list in the final?
So I had played him like in a practice. Like we'd played each other one time in
Sure.
practice, like a week or so, or maybe 2 weeks before. So we kind of had an idea of like what our lists were capable of. I honestly expected to see more of my list, and it was really like one of the things was like, hey, you're going to come across this list, so because we're squad mates, like I want
Right.
you to get an experience of this to kind of know
Hmm.
what not to do, what to do, whatever. He did beat me in that one, but I feel like I probably benefited more from that game
And it
than
was
he did.
crates was the scenario, correct?
Kratos was a scenario, so you know, what is your target here? Well, really, it's whatever it's Rexler or Darth Vader. Those are the one or two targets. Darth Vader was too far away for it to be, um, w- you know, it wasn't worth to try and get to
Hmm.
him because Rexler was in the way. But he came through the middle because I get to pre-position with my boosts, so I can like do a bank boost, 5 forward. And it's like, well, you're going to go through that regardless. So you're going to lose you're losing your Duke. So that's my money there. So all you've got is your focus. So are you using that on offense or defense? If I can now get 4 shots on you, you're probably having to save that for defense.
Right.
And then the next turn, because I only used 1 chaff cloud, it's like I can threaten, like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to risk a 4K and then have no mods because I might get to stress you because I might be
Right.
chucking a chaff cloud on you?
Hmm.
I didn't. I held it off for Vader. Because Vader was coming in from the far right, and so I think I did like again a boost and the 5 forward chuck, um, just to stress him, lose his lock, get him jammed, just strip off those mods so he's having to burn all his force up.
Right.
The Rexler Brath, if he is left alone, if he's got Duke and he's got a target lock and he's got Diamond Boron on you,
It's
like that
gonna
can
mess
do
you up.
like really good damage. You've got the initial damage, and then you've got the one roll for
Splash
everybody
damage.
around it. So it's good.
Yep.
In fact, the first time I played him, he Diamond Boroned me and killed one of his own DMS Jingoists. So he got double the value.
Yeah.
It's a really good list, and as it shows, because he was just kind of tearing through the competition.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
undefeated through the Swiss. And then we've got the champion list. Stolen Valor, 5 FO ships, Dread and Grudge, both with the Electro Chaff missiles, Prox Mines, Skilled Bombardier. Grudge also has APT and Elusive. Scorch and Malaris in the FO ties, and then the Tie Whisperer Kylo, Shattering Shot, Instinctive Aim, Predator, and Concussion Missiles, Advanced Optics, Jamming Suite, and Munitions Failsafe. Just a ton of toys there. So we've talked some about your list and talking about your matchups with others. What are some of the different iterations that this list has gone through? What's your perceived strengths and weaknesses? Does your approach based on the scenario change at all with this list?
um, yes. So we'll go over the iterations. Like, so what are your options? Like, so Grudge ATP actually has hurt me in some ways. That was a tricky upgrade
Mm-hmm.
because if I bump somebody, like I bumped a Jingoist, and I really wanted to shoot Vader range 1 with my calculate, but I
Right.
couldn't. I had to shoot the range 0 dude, um, because of ATP. So sometimes you got somebody that's range 2 and they're 1 health, and you're like, man, I need to shoot that guy. I've got a
Yeah.
lock on him or whatever, and you can't because of ATP. So ATP is a funny one. I don't. What else can you do? You can do fuses for proc spines if
You
they feel like
could,
you.
yeah.
But well, I don't know. I don't think that's a good
Yeah.
thing because you have to be able to judge and know that you're going to hit. If you, I say that, and I of course did bomb my own Kylo because I misjudged, and got it wrong. Um, T. It's funny when you play a lot online and then you go to real life, and the difference in how things look and the
Mm-hmm.
size. It's very different. So it is an adjustment. Um, Grudge is pretty is he's good. I mean, he's so good. Dread, it could be anybody because all you're after there is the Proxmine, Skilled Bombardier, and Chaff. His ability is worthless. You can't even use it
Right.
because you can't. You've got nothing to be able to reload, so you can't reload anything. So you can't even do that. So that does nothing. Scorch, man, I lost Scorch in 1 round so many times. In 1 shot, he has
Oh
been
wow,
one
really?
shot. Oh yes,
What
and
action do
Malor's
you
the
take? Do you
same.
take focus? Do you take evade?
You pretty much always take in a focus.
Yeah,
But it's those
that's what
blank
I do.
outs. Like
Yeah.
it happens. You get blank out. And against like Rebel Alpha, like he's died multiple times
Yeah.
to 1 shot from Wedge or whatever. And the same with Malorus. That list, this list versus the Alpha list, this has the advantage, but you have to get that approach right.
Mm-hmm.
Because even after you chaff, if they've gone past the chaff, Fen can still save you with like, that's okay. I can still give you like the extra locks and all that stuff
Right.
with the coordinate.
Right.
So you got to get that approach right because you can get one shot. Scorch is such a value piece at 3 points. He's I4, so he's meeting that. In X-wing right now, the minimum you need to be really is I4.
Sci-4.
Like it's I4 and up. Below that, it's got to have some edge case reason, like you've got a bomber or something. I don't know, something like
Mm-hmm.
Finn, whatever. There's got to be some reason why the low initiative it's actually a benefit. By and large, I4 and up, and it's
Yep.
such a strong, consistent. Like I can get 4 dice, fanatical, predator, advanced optics. It's a really good for 3 points. It's such a value piece. He almost always does more damage than he takes. It's very good. Malorus is a funny one. Um, I went through, I've tried Fanatical instead of Marksman, which in the long game, Fanatical is better because if he doesn't die and you've popped all the charges and,
You're
the rest of the game,
shieldless, then
you can just,
yeah.
yeah, you're shieldless and you're like, okay,
Evade it. Evade every turn.
yeah,
Just
I'm
evade
just
the shit
evading
out of
every
it. Yeah.
turn. So it gives her longevity. The marksmanship, I did go back to the marksmanship just because it's like, well, there seems to be quite a resurgence in fire sprays and big
Mm-hmm.
ships.
Yep.
Those crits are kind of needed. The cluster missiles, and it's another thing. So obviously you need a target lock, and then you pop her glitter stim, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where you're getting your double mods from. And she's I5, which is really good, and only 3 points. But with Electro Chaff, again, you can ruin your own plan with that. If you
Right.
launch that and they land on it and they're sitting on it because you judged it wrong and because you want them to go through it, you don't necessarily always want
Right.
them to land on it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you want them to land on it, but sometimes you don't. Um, if they're sitting on that cloud, well, you're now just a 2 dice gun. You have to find somebody else to try and target lock that's within range and you can
Right.
shoot. So that one you actually have to play. You have to play intelligently because you can just completely ruin the whole point of bringing cluster missiles and Malorus. I have thought about switching to concussions because of the amount of times where they've landed on the cloud and they sat on the cloud. And it's like, oh well, I'm not going to target lock you because now I can't,
Right.
and there's nobody else to target lock that's even worth shooting or like that's going to enable me using clusters. Clusters has been really good. Like again, you're kind of relying on some variants there, but clusters has been really strong. But there is also a case for cluster for concussions. But Malorus super efficient, 3 points, I5. Good job.
Who's the MVP? So now that you've played the games and it's the end of the event, who gets the game
God,
ball?
I don't know because they all have their play.
It's a
Like
team
Grudge,
effort.
it is a team
Team
effort.
win.
It's a team effort, but it's not one of those lists that fall apart once a piece goes.
Right.
And you see a lot of that with with a lot of these lists.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're, once Fen is gone and Dutch,
And
you're actually
yeah,
still
and
good.
Wedge.
Like Luke,
Yeah.
Luke is super good.
Mm-hmm.
He has his double mods. He's self-contained. So you want these lists that don't fall apart when one piece is taken off. You kill Scorch, doesn't matter. You kill anybody, it doesn't matter. You kill half the list, it doesn't matter. I can still do things.
Right. How does your approach change on how you either line up or fly the list based on either scenario or like different archetypes that exist right
Well,
now?
both. Like if you're doing, I mean, so the ties are typically my objective monkeys, right? So they're the ones that. So if you're doing Assault of the Satellite Ray, that one's a little harder. You can get some points initially on the second round,
Mm-hmm.
but really you then need to be engaging and moving off from them. So that's the one's a little trickier. Kylo comes in is always going to want to try and come in from the side, um, unless, like in some cases, maybe it's a Mourner list, and she's I4 and he won road, so I got to see where he put, and because the bombers can, like, oh well, I'm actually going to turn at the first round. I'm going to
Right,
boost to the
right.
right and then 4 forward, and reposition and be getting over on the other side of the board now because that's where you've deployed. So if Morna's down first, I can then line up everything in front of Morna, make sure all those bullseyes are on. I can put Kylo smack in the middle, so I'm getting 4 dice, rerolls, etc., and try and burn it down. So you know the placement, typically I'm putting the bombers. The bombers are almost always just going together with like a ship and a bit length between them, just to allow movement.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the list, again, it's fairly close to the middle because you don't have a lot of reaction. Kylo can react, he can barrel roll boost and move around, and then he can flip his arc and whatnot. So that's super strong. So he's another piece that you can kind of be very flexible with your placement. The ties, you cannot be flexible with your placement because all you've got is a barrel roll. So they're the ones you got to be worried about lagging behind. But a fun list, all in all, because it's so versatile. It's got some tools for everything. You've got arc dodges, you've got high agility, that's fine. You've got low health. If I can get to you and you have not killed me, then I'm going to bomb you, and I might kill you in one bomb if I'm lucky and you're unlucky.
Let's move into a few general questions just about sort of state of the game kind of thing. How does the game now feel different from it does in the first wave of 2.5? Because we're only in the second points change of this now effectively third version of X-Wing miniatures.
The game does feel different, but it's still so. To me, it has two problems. The first one being things being too cheap, certain ships being too cheap, and they figured that out after their very first. They did their points, and then you saw how everybody was. You start with the 2-point ships first,
Yep.
and then you build around it, and then so it all kind of went to these same builds and whatnot. They recognized that, and they spoke on it and said, we realized that we kind of messed up, and these 2-point ships, and that's what everyone gravitated to. Two-point ships, and off you go, and then you fill out the rest, flavor to taste. And then they go ahead and do the same thing with Empire, which was kind of disappointing. It's like you learnt,
Yeah, it was
and then you
just
did the same
different
thing.
stuff, and in fact, they gave more 2-point ships
They
with the
did.
Jingoists, and
I
and they
know what they're
essentially
trying to do, but
traded Night Beast for Wampa.
yeah, and Wampa's better than Night Beast in my
Yeah,
opinion. But still,
probably so.
uh, yeah. Actually, Wampa was still pretty good because not Wampa. Night Beast is actually very good still. But the point is that again, you look at those carts and you look at those lists, and it's like Jingoists fill out. You're in the same spot of what everybody was doing, but you're still doing it with Empire. So, and hopefully they will change that. I don't know if Jingoists feel good at 3 points, but there's so many things at 3 points in those ties that are like, oh god, that's gross. That feels terrible for 3 points. Like it feels so strong, especially when you start comparing against other factions.
Right.
So, but I feel like they've been so responsive and willing to realize they've made a mistake and change that mistake, even if they do sometimes double down a bit on mistakes. When they see something's a bit too strong, they often give it a slap from both sides, right? It's not just once across the face. They're double fisting it. So sometimes that can be a little heavy-handed, but it seems to be working out fine for the most part. The other one being loadouts. That's it's a little too much, when you can literally just do whatever you want. Just hey, Kylo has 20
Let's
something
throw a
points.
fucking heavy laser cannon on a TIE fighter. Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about that stuff
Yeah,
because
loadout slots is another matter
there's slots and
entirely.
then there's points.
Yeah.
Like there's some like having TIE fighters with missiles and heavy laser cannons and
It's
ion
just not
cannons.
right. That
It,
boy
it
ain't right.
That boy ain't right.
no, it's I don't know. But then you get into loadout points, which is a separate issue of And you look at old money, you look at the old 2.0 money, and you're like, my Luke is 80 something points now.
Yeah.
Like, if you
Yeah.
convert it with all the, and he shouldn't be. He's like, oh, what is Luke? 6 points?
6.
Yeah, 6 points. So, 60 points old world money. But he's really 80 something because of the loadout.
Yep.
And there's so many ships that are like that it's like, if that guy should be 25% of your list, but points wise he's 80%,
But is it
like with
okay if
loadouts.
everyone gets that? If everyone is theoretically has more upgrades and more points, is that theoretically
No,
okay? I
it's
agree with you,
not.
but I want you to explain why.
No, and because you look at it on the table, like like looking at it on a paper. Okay, I guess that's fine. But when you're at a tournament and you're like, you put your Kylo Ren down, and he has 7 upgrade cards, and you put this one down, it has 6 upgrade cards. Put this, and then you're like, well, I actually have so many upgrade cards, and there's so many charges to keep track of, and triggers and interactions,
Yeah.
and it doesn't make it easier for new people to get into the game, but it makes it harder. It makes it harder for them to adjust and get into because there's so many things that they are going to miss. So if they pick up a list that is like a current meta or something, they're going to have a hard time because there are so many things
So
to
many
try and
things.
remember.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like the loadout point system is just too much. It's too many toys. Make it a little bit less. Make people have to choose. Not like, well, I picked Luke. That was my choice. Maybe I'll, and then doing whatever the hell you want. You fill every single slot that is possible and like, well, I can fit the most expensive upgrades on every slot, whatever. Like, I don't think you should be able to do
Right.
that. I think you should be able to. I think you should have to pick upgrades and actually have to be thoughtful about them. And having loadout points so high, you really don't have to.
The other major 2.5 change in this wave being scoring objective points in the second round instead of just right away. In your thoughts on how that has maybe changed lists or, setups, turn zeros, turn ones now?
Yeah, it affects those things immensely. Before it was just that's why Galactic Republic had such a huge advantage, is because they could be anywhere. They could
5
5
straight,
forward
pick up an
boost
objective, still have
and pick up an
force choking.
objective. Yeah, and still have soft focus. Too strong, too much, too easy. Changing it to two rounds, awesome change. Like I really I feel like they really have been responsive. So even their ideas that they've come up with, like, oh well, in theory we had this idea and it sounded really good, but in practice, no, it's not quite shaking out. It's actually being detrimental to the game. And a lot of people aren't giving them the time to react.
Sure.
They're like, they did this and this is terrible. I'm selling my things. It's
Yeah.
like, just give them time, man. We know, and they have said it's an ugly truth that they don't really know X-wing, and that's why you have eight named ties with missiles and heavy laser cannons and all these things because they don't actually know. So they don't know all the history. They don't know that they're like, yeah, we've been through 8 9 named ties before, and it was too strong. Then you got down to 6 named ties, which was good, not super
But
strong, but
yeah.
whatever. The point being is that you have to give them a chance to learn it. You can't expect them to know what you've learned over the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years that you've been playing. Like, it's a little unreasonable. Imagine if you were doing that job, but imagine it was Attack Wing, Star Trek Attack Wing, or the Battlestar Galactica game. You just jumped right into it, and you can't know all those things. And so you just need to give those people a chance to be able to react. Sometimes they're just going to have bad takes. I mean, that's
Sure.
everyone has bad takes at some point, right? So
Sure.
you just got to give them a chance. Sometimes it's going to be a thing that you just don't like. I just don't like objectives. Well, I mean, that's the way it is. But
Yeah.
they are going to do things that you like and things you don't like. But you just have to be mindful, give them the chance to make a mistake, learn from those mistakes, and then, because they're not trying to kill the game. Why on earth would they? That's their job. Their job is to try and keep this game going, keep us spending money, and so they're not going to just do everything just to like spit in the community's
Right.
eye. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like why would they do
Pretty
that?
counterintuitive.
Yeah.
All right. So, hypothetical. You have the power to make 4 changes for next wave. You need to cost 1 higher, cost 1 lower, ban 1, and free 1. Bring it into standard play that's currently in extended. So what are you pricing higher? What are you pricing lower? What are you banning? What are you releasing from jail?
Yeah, I really wish I'd given that one more thought beforehand. Yeah, there's a lot there. So, Jingoists, sorry, you boys got to go up. You're just too good.
But not ban. Go up to
Not
3?
not banned.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
I
I know that Jingoists are going to be on here somewhere, either banned or costed higher.
feel like they need to be costed higher, but
Okay.
maybe you give them a talent slot. Maybe you give them a couple extra
Sure.
points.
I think
I
that
don't
would
know.
absolutely be fair. Because, yeah, I think with just a 3-point illicit, at 3 points, that feels a little bad. I think if you give them the ability to pick up an elusive or a disciplined or something in addition,
Yeah,
that could be
yeah.
fair. What are you pricing lower?
That's tough to say because, like, there's so many ships out there that are not seeing play. Like, I'd have to
Yeah.
be like looking through them, be like, okay, this chassis isn't seeing play because it's way too expensive.
So maybe in your own first order faction, what's something that you wish costed 1 less point that you'd be able to squeeze in there?
I don't know. I feel like they're largely points wise fairly balanced. I don't know what I would want to reduce the point on
Not even
because
any
it's.
upgrades?
I mean, yeah, reduce,
Mm-hmm.
reduce.
Yeah.
No, there's no upgrades that I can
Wow.
think of that I'd want to reduce the points
Okay.
to make it
So
more
yeah.
palatable. No, I can't think of anything.
So I'll go through costed higher. I'm choosing Shattering Shot. Lower, I want Enduring to be 3 or 4 points. I think 5 is too much. I want to see a 3
Oh,
or
you know
4
what?
point Enduring.
Notorious needs to go up.
Okay.
God dang, Notorious needs to go up.
Over
Come on.
Genghis or
Yes.
Jingoists?
Ooh,
Okay.
I don't know. No, that's a.
Because you still have bans, so you can hire Notorious and you can ban Jingoists.
I don't like your choices. I'm banning Jingoist. I'm raising Notorious.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. I am banning Trick Shot. I have a lot of problems with it. I have it in my list. I have 2 copies in my list. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and I think a meta in which you can put Trick Shot and Shattering Shot next to each other, I think that's too much for me personally. What are you setting free? What are you taking out of extended and putting into standard?
It just had to be ships. Like you look at some of these factions, they need more. Like Empire needs more variety. Give them bombers. Give them Star Wings, whatever. Like something that there needs to be just be more options in standard. FO, just give FO everything that they can fly right now because they're limited. Oh,
I
you know,
would
if I
definitely
was going to lower
choose.
points on something, I would say the Resistance Bomber,
Okay.
because that thing's garbage. It needs to
Right.
be less points. It needs to be something. So somebody actually, I bought one of them the other day, for like $10.
A
Why
resistance
is that?
bomber
Because
for
nobody bloody
$10? Damn, I
yeah. It's like
want your contact.
yeah. No, it was Miniature Market. They had a sale. Probably because they have a million of them. Because nobody wants to buy them because they're garbage.
Yeah.
You know, it's a cool model, kind of in a
It's a very cool model.
nonsensical space way. It's a
Sure.
cool model, but whatever.
For my letting
Yeah.
free, it would definitely be either, if I could only pick one, it would be TIE bombers or the UPS UPS shuttle.
Yeah,
I
I
want
would sign off
Tabson
on
back.
that
I want my
work order.
Tabson Kylo quick draw trio on the table.
Yeah,
Personally.
I could be down with that.
Final question: what is next for Rob Pettit?
It depends on what people come up with that I find interesting. Like I said, I'm a filthy net lister. I will almost always just look at like, oh, that looks fun. I'll try it. No, I don't enjoy this play style. I'll keep going until I find some. Sometimes, like I said, I will occasionally come up with a little gem myself, but by and large, I mean, you know, just keep doing those tournaments. That's the only time I get to play is tournaments, so I'll always just keep trying. Obviously, I'm trying real hard for the GSP. Like I've gotten the world qualifiers, but I keep going 3-2 or whatever. Like barely doing above average, and I want to make cut. So that's my next thing is
Okay.
to try
Cut
real
and
hard.
GSP.
Is GSP? Try and get somewhere with that.
Great. All right. Well, Rob, we appreciate having you on and sharing your insights with us, viewers. Thanks for watching. Hope that you got some good thoughts, some good insight out of this discussion. If you want to see more, hit like and please subscribe to the channel. This is GenghisJohn signing off. See you in the next video.